What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of The Combat Chain. I am your host, Adam Philipchuk. Alongside me, as always, is Sean Hill. And today we got another very special guest. You've known him. He's, let's be honest, he is probably undeniably the face of Flesh and Blood at this point. You've seen him across multiple Pro Tour and Worlds casts. He is the host of the Instant Speed podcast, as well as many other great content outlets. Flake, welcome.
Yeah, I mean, face of Flesh and Blood is, I'm sorry, because there's so many better faces that could have been thrown up there. So I apologize for those.
I strongly disagree with that. I think as far as faces of Flesh and Blood, for commentating, you've got a good face, man. You gotta brush your shoulders off, man. You got it.
Oh, today's a different story. I feel kind of like grungy, if you will, and no offense to you guys. I only do my hair for my own podcast. That's probably where it goes. Otherwise, it's always firmly under a hat. And and that's where we're at right now.
Right on. I had a segue.
A segue?
Just to keep the thing going and leading up to
what we want to talk about?
Eventually, but just a nice I lost it. Oh. I rehearsed that intro. I rehearsed that intro too earlier today. I was because without Pat being here to do it now, I'm back in that role where I'm gotta think about that stuff.
You got big shoes to fill now. You got to do the segue stuff, and segues are not just for millennials and millionaires. You can ride one all the way into the next segment. So just hop on, baby.
That is such a sweet way to do a segue into the next segment.
Yeah. Well, no, I wanted to just do a brief I lost.
Hey, man, I say you keep all this in because this is the gold, baby. This is the gold.
This is the gold.
Keep it in, you cowards.
Cut it. No, keep it in. No, cut it. No, keep it in. Yeah. Keep it in.
We'll see. Well, you know what? Let's get right into it because Flake, you've been on the show before. We've done some of your let's be honest. We did Pat and I would do this bit called "Who Are You and How the Hell Did You Get Here?" and that kind of that exact term got coined because of the episode we did with you last. So you kind of helped us establish a framework for some of the stuff we were doing. And at this point, we Sean and I when we talked about having you on the show, we thought the really cool thing about the three of us is there's this ability to skip all the formalities and just dive right into interesting conversation. And something that Sean was really big on nailing right off the bat, because both you guys actually have some common ground in this territory, though different ends of the same thing. There's your background in TCGs. I know, and you did touch on this in our last episode. You started off with the Star Wars TCG from Decipher. And we're going to get into a couple different things here, because Sean, at the end of the day, kind of started off with Decipher as well, but a different part of it. But I guess, I'm going to hand it off to Sean here at this point, because Sean highlighted a really interesting thing about what he wanted to have out of this conversation. So take it away, Sean.
Yeah, sure. So, what's cool, so like I said earlier when we were talking before we started recording, I started in card games because oftentimes when you hear people getting into card games and they get in with the big three, which to me are Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, Magic. They've gotten in with playing Yu-Gi-Oh with their friends and Pokemon, and then when I heard that your first game was a Decipher game, it was the Star Wars Decipher game, I lost my mind. Because, and I'll get into my thing a little bit later, because I think that Decipher had such a weird space in time where they like had this pocket of great card games that never really found their homes, and they found their homes in a few players. And even today, like if people were to ask me what one of my favorite card games is, or one of my most formative card games was, I know exactly which one it is, and it is a Decipher game. It's not Star Wars. I'll get into what it is, but there's this thing, and as someone who didn't grow up with one of the big three, who wasn't like a core core commercial card game player, who had that little pocket of time where that was your thing, how special was it to you?
I mean, I still collect it and seek it out today. It's that special to me. I'm not even joking to you. I was at Harry Tarantula here in Toronto, digging through the basements of all of their kind of hidden treasures there, and basically because David Root, who runs Harry Tarantula's card game aspect, I guess, I don't know what else to call it, but basically sent me a picture. He's like, hey, digging through the basement, found this, and he found like a couple long boxes of Star Wars cards. He's like, I don't know what's in here. I'm like, you put that aside, you like tape it off. It's a crime scene now. I will be there. When are you there next? And he's like, well, I'm going on vacation for like 10 days. I'm like, you son of a bitch. So I had to wait it out. And then I went there and I went through every single card. I went through about maybe 2,000 cards of just
Wow.
like, I'm like, all right, and I showed up at like there was an armory at 6. I showed up at 2:30 because that's when his shift started. I show up at 2:30, and he's like, all right. He brings the stuff up, and I'm there, and I sorted it for him. I'm like, this is this is that, blah 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 blah. I said, here's what has. They were all duds. Like it was picked clean ultimately, but I got it. But other than that, I think I also found Lord of the Rings cards, so I went through that stuff. And that was loaded with gems. And oh my God, that was absolutely brimming with gems. So how special was it to me? Special enough for me to brave rush hour Toronto traffic to go sort through bulk. That's how special it is to me.
That's really cool. Like, and one of the things that we were talking, Adam and I, is I think I have this special space in my heart, because I think you have a few years on me. I'm a little bit. I started getting into the Decipher. My game was Mega Man.
I didn't even know that was a game. I didn't know that they made Mega Man.
It was. So the Mega Man NT, like the Battle Network series with the net trainers and stuff, that was my game. I absolutely devoured the Mega Man Battle Network card game. Still today, if someone were to ask me what was the weirdest, interesting card game you've ever played, it's the Mega Man card game. It was a hero-based card game where you could only attack once per turn. Your life was your deck. And then your character had a defense stat, and you would lose cards from the top of your deck. At the start of each turn, you'd power up. It was this really complex, rich game, but the issue with those games from Decipher was because it was IP locked. Oftentimes, if the IP didn't quite succeed as well as the system was designed to, then the game would kind of fail over time. And that's kind of what ended up happening, because Lord of the Rings and Star Wars lasted them a really long time, and eventually the company lost the rights to it, and then it didn't renew.
Right.
So that's how the company went under. There's actually a really crazy story I'll get into in a little bit about the Decipher. There was embezzlement and stuff.
Yeah, I was waiting for someone to bring this up because
perfect. Go.
Well, the whole thing about Decipher, and again, I don't know the nuts and bolts of it, but I mean, growing up, that was the company that essentially got me addicted to card games. I say addicted, but like it's been such a fulfilling aspect of my life for so many years. It has evolved into my career, and to see it go, is kind of to see it just falter and disappear was such a, at the time I was like, I think when it went under like 2002 maybe. I think it was like, how old was I then? I think I was 16 or so, like 15. So it was right around the time where I was getting a job and having disposable income. I didn't have to ask my parents to buy cards, and then it goes away. And that really broke my heart, because in retrospect, after having played, like I've played, 20 to 30 card games in my life. And when I say played, I don't mean like just know about. I have sat down and played games of these card games. And it still stands without a shadow of a doubt in my mind that Star Wars and Lord of the Rings, TCG, both Decipher games, had the most unique and immersive experience when it comes to card games. When I played Star Wars, I felt like the characters were representations of who those characters were. Their interactions, their abilities were reflective of the personas that those cards were printed. The Lord of the Rings game had the best resource system that has ever existed in a card game, and it had such a unique win condition of you either kill the ring bearer or you drop the ring in Mount Doom. Like it was not about life total. It was not about anything. There was no alternative win conditions. It was you play both sides of the field. You're both evil and good. You both have a fellowship. You both have the forces of Mordor at your disposal, and you have to eventually decide: am I better equipped to win by killing my opponent's ring bearer, or am I better equipped by taking my fellowship through the perils of Middle Earth to get to the Site 9 and survive and dump a ring into the it was so fascinating because everything that you play today, Flesh and Blood included, is a reimagining of the life total combat system that has basically evolved since Magic did it and created it. And how many Runeterra's the same thing, Hearthstone's the same thing, Mythgard's the same thing, cards, Shadowverse, all these other card games are just reimaginings and evolutions of that basic framework. The only one that I have ever played that felt different was Gwent, and because it felt different, that's why I sunk 6 years of my life fruitfully into that card game.
Yeah. I mean, there's something that you said that really resonated with me. You've played 30 games. I was one of those guys. So back, and I have to ask you this because you're from Montreal.
Mm-hmm.
You're from my hometown. You're from
our hometown. Our
hometown. Yeah, you're from
hey, man,
from our neck of the woods.
I got the Habs gear all over the place. You can't. I don't know. You can kind of catch the edge of it over here, but there's like here. I'll move the camera. There's a whole Habs flag.
No, I know.
Yeah, I'm the real deal, baby.
I've got none of that, mais moi, ce que j'ai, c'est que je parle comme ça quand je parle français, tu sais?
Oh, OK. Là, je comprends.
Yeah. Funny enough, Adam's also a francophone.
But moi, j'ai un bon accent.
Ouais, lui, il parle comme du monde. But one of the reason I was talking about that is because there you go. There's only so many stores that did the Decipher games, and I must have seen you in passing because I used to play at BD Cosmos.
BD Cosmos. I was a West Island kid, so
I know you were a West Island kid, but there's only so many stores. Where did you play? I have to know.
I played at a place called Hall of Fame, which was on Boulevard Saint-Jean.
St. John's. Yeah, man.
Boulevard Saint-Jean. And what's fascinating about this is that I was there for Christmas. I was in the city for Christmas time, albeit a shortened visit because of the snowstorm or whatever. I was supposed to be there for 5 days. I ended up being there for 2 because I couldn't travel. But when I got there, I showed up on Christmas Eve. I think they were still open, and I went there during the day. And the same guy that was working there when I went there when I was 13 is still working there, and I'm now 37. So he's been there for 24 years minimum. Mm-hmm. A dude by the name of Ricky, and I walk in, and he's serving somebody else, and I'm just casually putzing around, and I haven't been there for years and years and years. And I just want to see what they have Flesh and Blood style. Maybe they got singles. Maybe I'm going to pick up a couple packs or whatever. And I walk in, and the dude is just like, as soon as he's finished with somebody, he's just kind of goes to the cash. He's kind of just punching something in for another customer. And he's like, "Hey, Matt, nice to see you." I'm like, "Do you remember? You remember me?" He's like, "Yeah." He's like, "How's your friends Chris and Jed and this and that? What are you guys up to these days?" I'm like, "How do you still remember?" I'm like, "That's incredible." Yeah. I ended up taking a picture with him and just being like, "Dude, this is the guy who hooked me up with the goods for so many years."
That's the coolest story because you and I, in that, shared of having played so many card games and growing up in the same kind of area, and we found card games young-ish, right? And I remember you saying this, I think we were talking at Nats again, and you said, I was kind of this funny, awkward kid, but I was cool enough and funny enough that I had friends and whatever, but deep down, I just wanted to play card games and do kind of my own thing. That's exactly how I felt growing up because I found card games and they were my home. It was my life has been about card games since I was 12, and where the discrepancy is, and I've been shunning Adam from conversation since we started, but Adam found card games later in life, and when I say later in life, I mean like it was a recent-ish thing, and I think it had such a major impact on my life. It had obviously a major impact on your life, finding card games in this community and all that. And Adam finding it later, it's had that kind of impact on him too. So I think it's really interesting to see how important card games can be, and the community that that grows with it, and beyond that, you've had a career with it, and being a caster and all that. But I wanted to kind of bring Adam in that, and kind of say, hey, what did that do for you as well, Adam? Like, if it's been so big for me and Flake, it must have been that big for you as well.
Absolutely, and it's like it's interesting because I start to flirt with card games in like 2014, 2015. The funny thing is, in a way, Gwent was my first card game as well, but just not even like the true Gwent. Like it was like farting around on Witcher 3 and stumbling across Gwent in there, and quickly like having more fun playing Gwent in that game than actually playing the main storyline. And of course, like I quickly got my fill of that, but there was this idea of like I kept thinking like, where can I get more of this? And that's where I started to I'd known about, like, I had Pokemon cards as a kid, and like I knew about Magic growing up, but I'd never actually learned anything about Magic. And so that's where I kind of start to flirt with playing TCGs a little more. But then after that, it's just like this weird, like, it phases in and out of my life until when Flesh and Blood, I guess, like, not even then, like, I get some packs of Flesh and Blood then, and I play with my partner. But I guess when it really starts to impact my life is when Skirmish Season 1 goes online during the pandemic. Because I remember, like, starting to read about Flesh and Blood, and, like, for some reason, like, there was this new thing, this element of, like, discovery, and I want to learn more about this. And I was, like, flipping around on their website, and they're pitching all these concepts about the Armory program and all this stuff. But because we're in a pandemic, you can't access any of that. And so there was this craving to access that, just to see what it was like. And Skirmish Season 1 goes online, and I quickly, like, buy all the equipment, like a webcam and everything, to do that, and participate in my first skirmish. And the moment I jumped in, like, I guess an online game, I was so, in ways I didn't even realize yet, I was so immediately embraced into this community. Like, the same day I play that skirmish, I find the Canadian Flesh and Blood Discord. This would be in February of 2020. No,
it was 2020.
Was it 2020? Was that
been 2 years?
It's been 2 years. Yeah, the game came out in.
I know the game comes out in 2019,
yeah,
but I feel like, for some reason, I felt like there was another year in between there. But yeah, I guess in February 2020, we're like meeting people, and all of a sudden, like, the reality is like the spiral from there, like, making the combat chain, meeting people all over the world. Like, I have, like, you guys as friends, and, like, really good friends all across North America, and I've interacted with really cool people in Europe and in Australia, New Zealand. And this game has changed my life in ways I couldn't even begin to fathom. And to Sean's point, in a really short period of time, and that is a testament to. And I think, like, Sean's words were the benefit of TCGs in someone's life. And I think, like, yes, like, TCGs is what fosters some of that community, and like, in our case, like, Flesh and Blood fosters this really stand-up community for the most part. But, like, the reality is, it's not the TCG, it's the people that make the community, right? Like, the in this case, like, Flesh and Blood is the gathering point, and then we all foster around it. And I'm trying to take advantage of the video features and use good hand motions. Flesh and Blood is the pillar we all gather around, the common ground. But it's really us, the people, the interactions. Like, one of my fondest memories of, like, making making a really cool friendship in this game was like I guess this is probably the first real genuine encounter I had with someone that like has led to a lasting friendship since was during skirmish season 1. Like I like the first skirmish I was able to find out about was actually, in fact, my one of my local LGSs, it was their skirmish that they were hosting online in their Discord, and then some other people that hang out in the Canadian Discord popped into that, and that's where like the moment of like, and I find the Canadian Discord. Yeah, I'm like, oh my god, there's an entire community here. But then I start to like learn like, oh, there's more of these skirmishes online that I can play in at any time, anywhere, whatever, and I end up finding my way into a UK skirmish. I can't remember the name of the LGS, unfortunately, at this point. But I ended up having to get up at like 2 or 3 in the morning to like play in this thing. And I'm sitting in the lobby of this like random store's Discord, and there's like 20, 30 odd people there, and I'm like, I don't know why. I don't know what to do. I'm like barely awake, sipping my coffee, scanning the names, and I like see this name, Mr. Chocolate, and and I'm like, God damn, like that's a familiar name. I know I've seen that name around. Check mutual servers. Oh, sure enough, he's from the Canadian Discord. And before I can actually even think about like reaching out, interacting, anything like that, bing, I get a notification from Mr. Chocolate. This is the first time I've ever
Chocolate.
Arthur Chocolasic. Signaris card. I guess you know what? Yeah. So like especially in the Canadian community, like but I think everybody knows Arthur at this point. But like,
oh, yeah, of course.
But the point of that story being like, someone took the time to reach out to me and just like through a common thing, like where both the same place at the same time, a common humanity, and like he goes something along the lines of like, because he's the cool thing too is like we're both in the same province in Canada. I know you guys know Canadian geography. The majority of our listener base is outside of Canada though, and the reality, so like we're super close, like a 3-hour drive from each other, which in Canada is close. I know in like any other part of the world, a 3-hour drive
Alberta is close. In Alberta is close.
Oh yeah, like let's see, like 6-7 hours for me. Okay, like disclaimer, my profession is spending 12 hours at a time in a vehicle, so like I'm like up to 6-7 hours. I'm starting to be like, okay, that's starting to feel long in a car, but. You just tense your leg muscles every once in a while. You don't get any blood clots. You're fine.
It's good advice.
So it is good advice from a paramedic, nonetheless.
Yeah, you know that this is a Canadian broadcast because you're getting free medical advice.
Yeah. You know what? That's actually our first Patreon bit is we're going to start monetizing the medical advice, So you heard it here first, Flake. It's such
prioritize that healthcare.
I was going to say, it's such an Albertan thing to do, Like if you're in Western Canada, or if you're in Canada, you get that joke. Where I'm going with this is Arthur and I, we both are in the same time zone, and we're both up at like 3:30 in the morning, and he goes, what the hell are we doing up this early? And that was the first message he sends me, and I just chuckle. And since then, like Arthur and I have become really close friends, and so many other people like you guys and whatever, like I said, long-winded way of saying like, yes, this game has been remarkable, and the people around it, and yeah.
I'll throw the ball to Flake with a comment. So with that in mind, like I've realized something a couple of years back. Most of my friends, most of my relationships, close relationships that I have are through that catalyst. Is that something that you find as well? And when you talk to other card game players, it's always going to be a similar story. Oh, my friends and I, we got together and we've been friends for 20 years.
So it's an interesting kind of evolution of what friendship or how you make friends becomes, because I mean, sometimes the friends that you had in elementary and high school, I'm still friends with them. I still speak to them all the time. I was at spoke at one of their weddings just a few months ago, and that it's a great feeling when you see them succeed and you see them, but they don't necessarily have the same interests as I do. They have different lives. They're married. They have kids. I still play with children's toys. Like, let's be real. Like I have boxes of Star Wars figurines that I am just waiting for an excuse to get rid of, but that excuse hasn't arrived yet, kind of thing. Like, to me, these are all it's the reality of growing up. It's the reality of growing old. It's the reality of just growing as a person. You're not gonna always align with the same people you aligned with 20 years ago, 10 years ago, whatever. Look at yourself 3 years ago to who you are today. You're probably a different person, and that evolution will always lead itself to the fact that it's not that you no longer are friends with these people, but you may have grown apart, or you may not have the same intersecting interests and or priorities. My friends' priorities are their careers and their family and that. My priority is making sure that I don't miss my tunic trigger. Like, we're on different planes of existence here. Like, that's kind of how it goes. But I think that I'll always love those people. They're my family. But the friends that I have made through card gaming are the ones that I speak to the most frequently. They are the ones that I have the most interactions with, the most intimate, interactions with, in terms of the most time I spent, the most. I'll always be real with those friends that I grew up with all the time. I would never hide anything from them. They know me for all of my successes, my failures, my luster and all my blemishes. They know all of that, and I'm okay with that, because we grew up together, and we've gone through all the slings and arrows of growing up through high school and becoming adults and going and marching on forward. But when it comes to the things that I'm absolutely unrescuably passionate about, these are the people that I speak to the most, and that happens to be card game people and card game culture people and such. And it's not just flesh and blood. Some of the closest friends I have, people like Alias V in Magic. I was one of 2 guests at her wedding. I was the best man at her wedding because she moved from South Africa here to Toronto, and we became friends, and that was through card games. And these are people who I adore more than anybody. I was, aside from her parents, I was the first person to find out that she was pregnant, and that means so much to me.
It's a massive honor.
It is. It absolutely is. But that just sort of it's testament to the fact that this is not just a passing fancy of, oh, I like to play card games because they're fun. This is my life. And I think that a lot of people don't necessarily give enough, credence to or they don't understand the weight of what this is for me. It's the foundation, it's the pillars, it's the walls, it's the roof, it's everything for me. And then that's something that I think people need to understand. And some people might hear me say that and say, like, whoa, what an obsessed fool. Like, go touch some grass. I do. I touch grass. I do. I touch grass. I love it. It's great. Grass is great. Grass is amazing. Love it. Keep grass all day long. But
progress.
But this is both my profession, my hobby, my escape, and my reality.
That's a beautiful way to put it, man. I very seldom are the people that I've met who can put that into words. That's that same feeling that I have, where it's cards is my lifeblood, and without it, I feel like I'm aimless. And I think that's I can't. I don't really have words. Adam, we want. You took the words out of my mouth, man. That was beautiful.
Stunned, breathless.
One of the. I mean, I'm always breathless when I'm with Matt, man. He's always fucking fantastic. I know, man. Je te fais un petit velours. So one of the things that we wanted to talk about, and I'll kind of let Adam talk about, and it segues beautifully into this. It's card games is your life. Card games is who you are, and you try to do everything that you can to be part of that world. And you have a gift of being entertaining. Something that not a lot of people.
To some.
but yeah, you can't please everybody. But that's a whole other thing. But something that Adam relates to, I relate to also, is that kind of that spark of wanting to be captivating, entertaining, and wanting to contribute to people's betterment in life in a weird way. You're doing it through card games, but I wanted to talk about that need, and maybe Adam can take it from here. But that need to perform.
A need to perform. I mean, you know what? Like,
entertain. I don't know. Yeah.
No, that's. It seems so poignant when you put it that way, but and it seems so almost like it seems so I don't know how to properly describe this, because like the way that you say it, it makes it seem like it's like a drug for me that I need attention and whatnot. But it's
No,
it,
not the intention.
no, no, no.
Not the
And
intention.
look, I completely this is not. I know that I know what you're trying to get at, and what I'm
Okay,
saying
cool.
is that some might perceive it as being your need to entertain, your need to this. And in reality, when in retrospect, when I think about it, it's like it is a need to entertain. And I don't know how much of this sort of stems from things like insecurity or anxiety. And like you mentioned, when I was in high school, I was never cool enough to be invited to the parties and to the cool kids stuff. I was in a you might know this. You're both Canadian. You might know the International Baccalaureate program in high school, like the IB program. It was the advanced. It was for the nerds. It was the advanced thing. In my high school where I went to, it wasn't just about us being with the same group of 40 students or 50 students who were in that program. They also put our lockers on the other end of the freaking school, so we couldn't even hang out with the other people our age. So we were like the freak show, man.
They
we
wanted
were like
to keep you separated so like
Yeah.
their influence couldn't like taint you guys.
Possibly, I guess, but
These guys have
that
a future. Don't touch them.
yeah, exactly, kinda. But and like I was never I was never cool enough to be invited to those parties. However, I was charismatic and funny enough that I wasn't bullied or picked on that much. I say that much. I was still bullied and picked on, but it was like when push came to shove, there was always somebody from like the quote unquote cool group that'd be like, "Oh, he's off limits. Like we like him. He makes us laugh." And that to me became a defense mechanism to the degree of, if I can crack a joke, if I can make people laugh, if I can hold their attention from a joyous perspective, then at least they're not going to come after me from a negative angle. So it developed into a need to entertain, because the alternative growing up sometimes was I either make you laugh or you're going to make me cry. Like that was kind of how it went. If I could hold that attention
mechanism.
It was. If I could hold that attention and direct it in a positive and entertaining, joyful angle, that you don't have control of bringing this all down and then that house of cards crumbling within me.
That is so deep, and I feel that quite a bit. When did you? This is like completely unrelated to card games. I just want to know, when did you find out that you had that voice? Were you in your mid teens? Because Adam and I had that kind of conversation not too long ago.
So in high school, I was voted most likely to have his own talk show, which was fascinating. That was great. And I you get your first kick when I remember everybody didn't like doing presentations in front of the class. Like it was like no one wanted to do it. But to me, I was like, this is where you have to listen to me, mofos. Like if you don't listen to me, detention. Like, yes, it was like a built-in audience. It was the best feeling ever. And it started with doing a presentation, and obviously you're doing the presentation for the teacher to grade you, but at the same time I'm like, let's just slide in a joke here and there and see if people are paying attention. And then you get your first little bit of laughs and you're like, this is
there you go, there it is,
pure liquid heroin, right to your veins, and you love it. And that was when I was like, boom, let's go. But I never joined in high school. I never joined any drama clubs. I never did any performances because I was absolutely terrified, because that's what the cool kids did and I wasn't a cool kid. And it was so interesting to me that upon graduation, when all these other students and such were like, dude, this guy's a pretty good dude. Like, why didn't you ever join us for this or this or this? And I was like, I had other things to do, which was bull, because I was playing StarCraft and reading Star Wars books at home, all the time. That was my recreation. But that kind of parlayed itself into doing college, radio in Cégep. And for those who don't know what Cégep is, it's like this weird Quebec thing between high school and university for 2 years. I ran the radio station at John Abbott College. I did that. And then I applied for broadcast journalism at Concordia University. They rejected me. So suck a high hard one, Concordia, because I did it anyways. And then I got an internship at TSN Radio in Montreal for a year. And and then that was like, I need to pay my bills, so let's start. I was bartending. I started bartending for 4 or 5 years, and that was at a bar that wanted you to do flair bartending, so the juggling stuff. I learned how to do that, and then it's like you always have an audience. You always have somebody who comes up, sits at the wood, talks to you, or like wants to talk to you, and that's where I'm like, this is where we test out material. This is where we do jokes. This is where we entertain. And in Sage Up, I used to do a little bit of stand-up comedy when I was there, but it was like, confidence is the hardest thing to acquire and the easiest thing to lose.
Absolutely. I could talk about stand-up and all this stuff for hours, and maybe next time you're in town, we'll grab a cold one. But this is a Flesh and Blood podcast. God damn it!
Yes,
and
it
we're
is.
Gonna talk...
Yes, it is. Or it was.
We're gonna talk about some Flesh and Blood. Yeah, I mean, look, the idea to entertain and all that. I did some stand up as well. I did a lot of music. I was that guy as well. I'm really tall, so I got picked on quite a bit. But I found my voice, and I think Adam had a similar-ish experience where like you start playing music and you start to discover who you are, and you find your own little voice and expression through all of that. And it's beautiful when you can kind of bring that with passion, which is why I'm so grateful that Adam brought me on to co-host the podcast, because I'm extremely passionate about card games. I'm extremely passionate about Flesh and Blood as well, and I love talking to interesting people, which you good sir are part.
Great fit. Also, I mean, you got picked on because you were tall. Adam got picked on because he had that mustache when he was 12. Like that's
yes.
So I hear you.
I still vote that one day we will have some kind of formal. We should have some kind of formal, vote as to who that has the best mustache, and I think Adam is like literally out of Flesh and Blood.
It's like it's like saying who's the greatest hockey player of all time. Like, do we really need to field opinions? Like we know like we can do it for S's and G's, but I'm pretty sure it's you, Adam.
I'll take it. That. I'll take it. I mean, I will be the first to stress there are two other strong contenders for this. Philip McKay out
Screw
in Australia.
I don't care if they're listening. Screw those guys. It's you. Let's take this one home. Another win for Canada. Let's go.
All right. Canada. Yeah, I'll take it. Funny thing, this mustache actually finds me right before my foray into Flesh and Blood. I have not spent my entire life with this mustache, but I'll take it. Near
sure,
and dear
man.
My heart. Sean, you did say like talking a bit about some Flesh and Blood stuff. And I think this is a perfect segue. We're gonna cap things off with a good chunk of Flesh and Blood, but we're gonna start off our Flesh and Blood stuff with some Fab Light, like Fab adjacent. It is Flesh and Blood related, but segueing from entertaining and performer, of course, Flake has been seen, like I mentioned at the beginning of the pod, over multiple streams and casts now, and his name has really become synonymous with the Flesh and Blood casting. But as of more recently, and I wouldn't even say that's not the case, because Flake, we're still seeing you on the Realm game circuit stuff, which is really cool. But it's been starting to creep out there. People, I know Sean and I, we've known of this for a little longer. But of course, at first, like I think everybody wants to tiptoe around talking about these things tactfully. But like I guess, and even at this point, I still don't know exactly where the line is. So I'm gonna actually at this point leave it off to you, Flake. Like, and I'll give you a little bit of something to run with. Like, just like, we're not seeing you on the LSS stuff anymore, and what do we know about that situation at this point? Like, where are we allowed to talk about with the casting situation in Fab?
So I could put this into context. I mean, when I get what you're saying, where you're like, we haven't seen you on the Flesh and Blood casting circuit for a while now. And in reality, I mean, let's put this into context here. We had Worlds in November. There was really nothing, and then we had a calling in Indianapolis.
That's
and
true.
So there hasn't really been a whole lot, because they never really broadcast Battle Hardens all that much anyways. And I did do like a Min-Max Games PQ. I was able to do that, so that was a lot of fun. I'm still very much involved. Am I involved to the degree that I want to be? No, never, because I'm this is a direct quote that I have said to James White and to Chris Pierce, who are like the top dogs at LSS. I told them, I said, I want to do absolutely every event that you have. I understand that is not feasible. It's not plausible. It's not possible. I still want to do it, so I will never be satisfied. I want to do your world championships, and I want to do, a blitz game in the back alley behind a Wendy's. Like, that's what I want to do. I want to do it all. So will I ever be satisfied? I'll never be satisfied, because unless I'm doing every single event, then I'll never be satisfied. But that isn't me seeking the vanity of being at every single event. That's me just trying to scratch the itch of loving what I do. It has nothing to do about it has nothing to do about saying this is, hey, like, F off, like, this is my domain. It has nothing to do with that. It's just the fact that I want to be at every event. And I think that anybody who loves what they do and is passionate about what they do also probably shares that feeling. If like the greatest athletes of all time don't want to be benched, and that's how I feel sometimes. So that can sometimes manifest itself in like inwardly, outwardly. It's a very difficult thing, and like, I'm very open about talking about things like my mental health and such. Like, I suffer from depression, and it comes back. And when things like this occur, where there's an event and I'm not involved, it weighs on me, because irrationally it'll lead you down a path that is like, okay, I'm not involved in it, therefore they don't want me because I'm not good at it, therefore I need to get better. But if I'm not good, then what have I been doing my whole life? I've wasted this whole, and that is a very dangerous spiral.
Absolutely.
So recovering from that tailspin is incredibly difficult. And I want to clear the air in case there's absolutely any thought otherwise. I want whoever the hell wants to do what they want to do, then go do it, and I applaud you for doing it. That said, at the same time, the reason why I wasn't doing certain events isn't because I wasn't asked, and isn't because I didn't want to. It's because at a certain point, people need to know their worth and need to protect it. And that's part of the entire part of the entire sort of picture, is that at a certain point, Adam, if they said, hey, tomorrow you're coming into work and we're cutting your pay by 85% or 90%, you wouldn't go. You'd be like, if it's all the same, I'm just gonna stay home.
Yeah, no way in hell. I'll go flip burgers at McDonald's at that point.
Right. So there's a lot of underlying stories or there's a lot of rumor and speculation and stuff like that. And ultimately, it comes down to this: battle hardens, callings, all this stuff. They damn well better be broadcast, whether it's me or whether it's somebody else. People want to watch this, and it is good for the community. That said, do I feel like I'm really effing good at what I do? Yeah. I think that over the past several years, I have finally built the confidence and the portfolio and the repertoire and the reps to say that I'm pretty damn good at what I do. And I'm lucky that I still get opportunities, because they can be taken away from you. They can be, the reality of this business is I don't know when I'm paying my rent next. That's the reality of it. Like, that's the danger of it, and that's the stuff. So when I say that I want to do all the events, it's because I have a sincere passion for doing them. But at the same time, if I do an event at a 80-90% pay cut, then the next time I do an event, I'm getting the same wage, and that's not feasible. So that said, I think that I genuinely believe that as long as there's a broadcast of quality, that is a good thing, and I stand by that.
That's the reason I wanted to talk about this, and I think you've covered 95% of everything that we wanted to bring up, because we've obviously all watched the broadcast of calling Indianapolis, and And no, just by the way, just so we're completely clear, I think Punkage and Sam did a great job. I think
Yes. They
they
did
did
a
a great
great job.
job. I
Absolutely.
think I think, but 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 I come from a long time of playing Magic competitively, and when I tune into a Magic Grand Prix, which a calling is for Flesh and Blood,
Mhm.
let's not whatever. I for the longest time expected to see Rich Hagan and Brian David Marshall. If those two guys weren't there, I didn't tune in. And it's simply because there was a familiarity. They were the face of competitive Magic at that time. To me, and I think to a lot of people, you are the face of competitive Flesh and Blood. When I tune in to a casting or broadcast of Flesh and Blood, I expect to see you, Tannen Grace, Brian Gottlieb, Stephen Cookus. There's a few other casters. I apologize if I haven't mentioned them. You could fill it in, but those are the four primary that I was introduced to the game with and I've grown familiar with. And so when I tuned into Calling in Indianapolis and didn't see one of you guys, there was a weird feeling. And I come from a background in competitive Smash Brothers, and in Smash Brothers there was two casters. I'm not going to go into the details, but most of it was cast by whoever the hell was at that tournament, and so there wasn't that feeling of, oh, I'm going to watch a Smash Brothers broadcast. Those guys are there now. It's better. They have EE and DK, and like they have a few guys that are doing that specifically, but there needs to be familiarity because that's what the other guys are doing. And now the broadcast for Magic is, I don't, the Cedric Phillips and a few other people that are doing a great job. I don't want to take away from them, but for me, having that iconic person that is linked to that product or that IP as a player and as someone who consumes this content religiously, it's so important to me. And I want to know if that's something that you think as well. Do you think that is important?
So, like, I mean, selfishly, I will say yes, obviously, because, like, let's be real. Yeah. I like you. I like you. I mean, like you. I like you.
Oh, thanks, bro.
Like, I like you both. I, like you, appreciate familiarity to the same degree that there's a reason why I listen to RDS when I watch a Habs game versus listening to anything else. I want to hear Réjean Houle. I want to see, I want to hear that calling because I know what I'm getting. I like what I'm getting, and I listen to the French broadcast because it is superior to the English broadcast. That is all it is. It has nothing to do with anything other than that. So when it comes down to, when you say like, oh, you're the face of Fab, I can't say that because I don't want that responsibility, and I appreciate that, and I'm glad that a lot of people associate me positively to the game and I enhance their experience to the game, but I am never bigger than the game, nor should I ever be a selling point for the game. And that's, I think, one thing that is kind of tough for me to reconcile at the same time, because I appreciate it so much because I get a lot of very kind words from people that tell me how much they appreciate what I bring to the broadcast. But what I have to really reiterate is that I am there to enhance the broadcast. I am not there to be the broadcast. I am not why you're tuning in. I am there to enhance and direct the narrative and to add flavor to what it is. And my personality bleeds into it. Obviously, you guys know this more than anybody, that I always let myself through that door, that it's not a persona. But I think that saying that it Flesh and Blood and me should be linked, that means that I am the game, and that is not at all true. And
I understand what you mean.
But I understand the aspect of familiarity when it comes to this, because, like I said, I listen to RDS because I want those two broadcasters. I listen to, I miss Vin Scully with a passion because I haven't really latched on to any of the other Dodger broadcasters, and I'm a huge Dodgers fan. But to say that would be hypocritical of me, because I went through the radio business and tried to get into the radio business and still try to get into the radio business. And the same people that I listened to on the radio when I was going to school in kindergarten, getting ready for school, are the same people who are on the radio 32 years later. And They don't make space for you. They're just there. And if I become that, then that becomes bad for the business. And I'm not talking the business of Flesh and Blood. I'm talking about the business of broadcasting and esports broadcasting, because that's the business I'm in. I'm not an LSS employee. I'm not a Flesh and Blood guy. I'm a card game guy. I'm a broadcaster. That's what I am. So if there are others who want to do a broadcast or main up, and like, what people need to understand also is that, you know, LSS is not responsible for the broadcasts at Battle Hardens and Callings anymore. They're not the, like, as like Indianapolis was like the first Battle Harden that Ethan did, that was all his own thing. And he clearly made no money because he was on Twitter asking for money. So it's not a feasible thing. Like, I mean, you guys are laughing, but that's the reality. I mean, go look at the tweets.
100%. I was going to bring it up, but I'm glad that you did.
Yeah. But the thing about it that kind of, you know, grinds gears a little bit is that it's an expensive endeavor. And if you think that putting on a broadcast for a calling is like 10 grand, you got to think about 50 to 60 grand US. And 50 to 60 grand pales in comparison to, we just had a Magic Pro Tour. You know how much that broadcast probably cost? 250 to 300 grand. Yeah, easily. Yeah. So all these things about the callings or whatever, you know, at a certain point as a business, LSS has to decide and say, is this a financially viable thing? And obviously there are intangibles where a good broadcast cannot be measured by metrics alone when you're presenting something. But at the end of the day, also, you know, they're worried about things like, hey, we got to put a Pro Tour, we got to put a Worlds together, and we got to think about ramping this, you know, stuff up for 2024. And that's where it goes. So in that vacuum of them taking care of it, that's where you have ambitious people like Ethan who go out there and bust their ass to put on a very good broadcast. That's the reality of it. And he put on a great broadcast and the casters were awesome. The problem there is that people like myself, people like Tannen, people like, you know, Uber, Charmer, Armada, all you know, Brendan, we were asked to do those broadcasts. But without a budget, I can't work for less than minimum wage, which
you
unfortunately,
can't evaluate yourself.
Well, but the thing about it is that this isn't a knock on the broadcast. This is a knock on the reality that this shit is expensive. It's difficult. It's time consuming. It is stressful beyond belief. And I have now 4 or 5 years of experience doing major tournaments, like $100,000 tournaments, that I can't go below a certain amount, because the reality is that if you get hired at a certain amount that is at so far below what your normal rate is, other people will then hire you at that rate. And it's unfortunate. Now, all this to say, LSS has been supportive of these sort of new angles towards broadcast, and that is awesome, because like I said to start this all off, is that my main concern is that there is a broadcast, and that to me is more important, because the game is leagues and eons ahead of where I am. We're not in the same plane of existence. So that's why it's hard for me to reconcile when someone says you're the face of the game, because that sort of puts me on an even keel, and we are not in that regard. The game is the game, and I'm along for the ride, you know, going wee.
I just wish you were along for you, as very selfishly. I hope to get to see a lot more of you.
Well, you likely will. I mean, as far as I know, you know, I'll be in Baltimore in some capacity or another. I'm very excited about that. And let's be real, man. Like, dude, I'm on Twitter. I've got a podcast, and I'm out there, and I'm just loving what I'm doing, and I'm loving Flesh and Blood. And you know, I had a wonderful conversations with James White this week about my place in it, and just, you know, reaffirming that I have a place in this game, and that sometimes can be it's a fleeting security that you have, but when you have people that care about it, reach out and say, hey, I'm worried about you. What's going on? We want to make sure that you know that you're appreciated and that you always you always have a place within what we want to do. That's a good feeling. And, again, just to sort of wrap it up, am I upset about where the broadcast is going? I don't think so, because again, the fact that there is one where there otherwise wouldn't have been is a great thing. Yep. What I wish is that people who undertake these things and who get involved in it, I just want them to know that sometimes you gotta get paid appropriately. You gotta make sure that you are getting your worth. And it's all fun and games, and it's all fine and dandy to be in front of a camera and to do your thing, but make sure that you're getting yours, that you're able to eat, as it were. And again, the fact that these things are getting broadcast is fucking awesome. So I'm really enthusiastic and encouraged by it.
Yeah, absolutely. Like at the end of the day, I think there's a few interesting points to highlight there, and there's still, like, with what you just said, there's a ton of minutia that we can get into. We don't want to at this point, though. I think we're getting to that point. We got to move on to something else. But absolutely, yeah, absolutely. Like the sorry, Sean. Like you said, like LSS has to be flexible, open, and push the envelope, and like we have to. Yeah, like Ethan has done a fine job. You said, like, when you take on something like this, it's a big undertaking. I think it's just a matter of, like, at this point, like, to your point, getting the game out there, getting eyes on the game. That is what we need at the end of the day.
And one thing is, like, I mean, anybody out there could have done what he did, but they didn't, and he did. So give him the credit that is due, because anybody could have been doing what he did, but he did it. So, like, props to that, because you got to do it. Now, there's a lot of growing pains along the way, and you're going to make mistakes along the way, but that's how you learn, and that's how you progress. So that's where I'm at.
And you know what, you make a good point there of, like, you make mistakes and you grow from them, and that's all of this is a process, and anything anybody strives to do in life, like, there's always going to be mistakes, and growing from them, improving your process, like, that's what matters at the end too. And, like, it's about just us being eager and seeing what the future will look like, and then all right, we're like I said, enough on that one. I think let's like I said, let's finish off on a good fab note here. We want to talk a little bit.
That's a good note.
No, it was a good note. It was a great
good note.
I mean, no, like they're all great valid points, but like, let's get into some
serious subject. Yeah.
Some playing, some good old fab, some outsiders chit chat. We've been the official spoiler season hasn't started yet, but LSS likes to give us goodies along the way anyway, and we've been getting a steady flow of them ever since calling Indianapolis. We didn't really, Sean and I, we didn't really get a chance to chat on these last week, so I don't think we're going to get into all of them this week, but I think this would be a fun opportunity to dive into a few of the more interesting ones. I know the one that's really been standing out to me right away is the new ninja action, Dishonor. Collapsing traps certainly sounds interesting, though I'm not...
Oh, no, that's the truth, dude. That card is the truth.
That card is the truth?
That card is the truth. Collapsing trap. That's the one that stops the go, or that dunk your hand and draw one less.
Yeah, it's like mind warp, but like as a defense reaction. Like
that card is the truth. Thank your lucky stars that they specialized, or you can only have one of those bad boys in a deck. That is the truth. That card is the truth.
I think it's contingent on what Riptide does. We haven't seen that part yet, but definitely there's potential there for it to be really.
But I mean, look, man, we had Charles Dunn on a little bit less than 2 weeks ago, and we were talking about Riptide, and we didn't know, we hadn't seen the trap yet, but with the new, and I've been excited about Riptide because I like decks that do shit. And so like, and when I saw that card, instantly I went yes, and then I read the article and I realized that traps don't have to be played from Arsenal anymore. And like, then there's a little part of me that just went like, ooh, like I was not excited for Riptide up until that errata to how traps work, and all of a sudden I'm like, that's all I give a crap about is Riptide. I just
Now,
want to know more about that character.
I do want to caveat what you just said. Traps can be played outside of Arsenal with the exception of the original crew traps. Was it Pitfall, Rock Slide, and
like Crushing? I don't know what the other one was, but
Tripwire.
Tripwire.
Yeah, those ones still have to be played from Arsenal. But yes, any trap we get moving forward will be playable from hand, which opens up a ton of playability. I know that was a lot of people's complaint about traps was the
clunky. They were clunky.
It was clunky with the Arsenal. Yeah, exactly.
I'm really excited about Riptide. It's going to be so much fun.
Oh, well, I mean, like, I think when they came out, New Horizon wasn't even a thing, right? So you'd have to slam them on a Ranger that wanted an Arsenal, and if all of a sudden you just don't attack the Ranger, then they're gooned with a D-react in Arsenal and can't fire an attack. So, like, it's bad in that regard, but I'm telling you, man, this card is gonna ruin people's lives. It's going to ruin people's lives. And now, that said, it's like, all right, cool story. Like, you can slam it and deny an Arsenal because they don't have a card left. You can slam it and you can just, it's like automatic tempo gaining, or it's automatic like turn shutdown. Kind of like a good Stalagmite will stop, a turn, like stop that Rosetta Thorn or stop whatever. Like a good Stalagmite should be blocking for like 11. That's a good Stalagmite. A good Stalagmite blocks for about 11.
Yeah, no, like when you put it that way, like, yes, I 100% agree. Collapsing trap in the right setting is absolutely backbreaking. Now, one of the caveats, so you say, like, you compare this to Stalagmite. Stalagmite, though, sits on your board, and you can just sit and wait for that opportunity. The reality with, especially with Ranger, where your Arsenal... Now, then this is why I say we're going to have to see what Riptide's hero ability is. I think that's going to be the key to our trap's going to be good or not now, because you can't just park this in Arsenal and wait until that big turn is coming, or wait till the writing's on the wall. Like, because of the nature of Ranger, you almost have to, like, if you draw this at the wrong time, you have to pitch it, and then you just have to hope this 1 in 60 card, like, you have a 1 in 60 chance of this thing hitting when you need it to. Like, when you do, it will be good. But that's my take. What do you got, Sean?
I've got something to say. I've played a lot of card games. A lot. Flake, I'll take you on that number 30. Probably something around those lines.
Close to that, yeah.
Ranger is a toolbox class. That's how the class is designed. That's how Azalea works. Riptide's going to be able to toolbox traps. I like toolbox decks.
So here's a little picture for you. I get what you're saying. A 1 of 60, you got to find it and whatnot.
Yeah.
But how many people run like a solo Oasis Respite Red to basically shore up their Kano match?
Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
You find it,
especially
you
in this
slam
game,
it in Arsenal, and you freaking wait.
But
that's
you
it.
can't. But the point being, in this deck, you can't slam it in Arsenal because of, unless Riptide lets you circumnavigate needing to keep playing out of Arsenal. You can't do that, though. You can't just park it and wait.
Is his bow a two-handed weapon?
Is it even his bow?
We don't know yet.
That's a good question.
Oh, the new bow. What is it? Barbed Castaway. Yes, it is a two-handed bow.
Okay, so what if they gave him? What if his legendary equipment was something like, you can store a trap in your offhand, or something like that?
That'd be interesting.
I don't know. I feel like his legendary equipment is gonna have to be a headpiece, and it's gonna have to be something having to do with pop it, go get a trap, and bring it to hand. Because they can't put that kind of fetch ability on a stick; it's too good. Even Katsu's limited to that kind of effect. So I don't know, and there's something about the way the character is built and designed, and like the aesthetic of it, and the 38 life. There's something there,
It's
and
the
I'm
hero
looking at
ability,
it. I'm
I'm
like,
certain. Or it's another, like, just the way the traps all come together, all the new traps we're getting.
there's something there because I love like one ofs in any decks. Like my favorite probably card or deck in the history of card games that I've played is Birthing Pod from Magic. I
Oh,
know
yeah.
I know a lot of people hate Birthing Pod. I played Naya Shamans before Birthing Pod, and before that I played Survival of the Fittest. I love taking a deck, going through it, and finding shit. That's my favorite thing to do. Manipulating cards is so much fun. And so there just I saw the hero, I saw the trap, and there was like this light moment, like this moment in my head. I'm like, maybe I'm gonna get something I actually want to play because I don't want to play anything. Everything ever since she's been gone, my life has felt hollow. Give me
Uh,
something I want to play.
Now, there's like a shrine, I think, in a lot of people's houses about just that one particular hero. Like, no one whines and cries necessarily about Starvo gone, and like the chain people are kind of happier than they are sad that he's gone to a degree. But the Prism ones are like the most jaded of all players ever.
I mean, look, I played Dorinthia this season just because I refused to play Icelander and I refused to play Oldhim because, and you know this because we played on Talishar. You've actually dumped me, and the issue is that I can't play Oldhim into the mirror. I just don't have the reps for it. And then I refused to play Icelander because I just didn't want to play Icelander. So I played Dorinthia and did pretty well on Dory. Like I top eighted like 3 of the 5 events I played, but I was like, I need to play something that I like and something that feels familiar. And the closest thing was Dory. And when I saw Riptide and I saw the cards, there's a little bit of me that like got that spark of like, oh, maybe I get to play something that'll ruin someone's day again.
Oh, that's that dude. Whenever I remember when I just moved to Toronto, and before I had even started playing Gwent, I was playing a lot of Hearthstone. And whenever I'd be like dating somebody, and she'd want to learn about the card game, I'd teach her the rules of how to play Hearthstone, and she'd be playing, and she'd be like, "Okay, well, what should I do here?" And my advice was, I'm like, "Here's the rule of thumb. The rule of thumb is what would make them the most mad." And she'd be like,
Yeah.
"Probably this." I'd be like, "Yeah, that's it. You're absolutely correct. You do what makes them the most mad." And
Is
that's
that really the
basically and, like,
heuristic of Hearthstone?
oh, I mean, like, I totally get what you're talking about, Sean, because like,
Play Freeze Mage.
oh yeah, that was my jam. Like in Hearthstone, I'm a mage main in Hearthstone. Absolutely. Right now, when I do play, which is
Yep.
maybe like once or twice a week, I play Big Spell Mage because it has
Yep.
the most ridiculous, bogus, fury enrage inducing plays that you could possibly, and the amount of emoting that I get from opponents. Oh my god. I know this is not a Hearthstone podcast.
It's fine.
There's a secret in Hearthstone, a mage secret that says after your hero is attacked, spawn a copy of that minion to attack my opponent. So my opponent had 16 life and had a 16/16 on the board, and I just said, well played. I had, I think, 20 health, and I just passed. And they come at me, and then it spawns and kills them. And oh my god, you know when you're like, friend request from, I'm like, oh, somebody's going to tell me what my mom is for sure.
Okay, so Matt, I've got you found out, man. You can't hide from me anymore. You're a Yogg Saron player.
I was absolutely a Yogg-Saron player.
Yeah, you are.
Spin the wheel, baby. Let's go. I want to spam spells. And then when shit hits the fan, I want to say YOLO, and I want to know if I win or lose. That's what it is. 100%. That's it. I want to play a card to tell me whether I win or lose. In fact, there's a card now. It costs 9, and it says throw 20 mana worth of spells directed at your opponent. So you don't even play the Frog Saron where he dunks on himself. No. It all goes at my opponent, and it's the best feeling in the world.
I've never figured out someone that well and been so disappointed.
Hey, I wear my heart on my sleeve. I tell you, I hide nothing from nobody.
props to you. That's really funny. I know you weren't big into Hearthstone, Adam, were you?
Not huge, no.
Nah. I mean, like, look, I'll get my stuff out of there. I'm a handlock player.
Oh, I was handlocked too at the time.
I
Yeah.
love handlock. Handlock and Ram Druid was my thing. I love handlock.
Back in the old days, dude, like handlock was the ultimate move of, okay, I'm gonna eat shit for a while and then you're not gonna do anything. And it was like that's like same thing like when you played Wallet Warrior, like Control Warrior. Yep. Control Warrior.
Yeah, Malagos Warrior.
Oh God, do you remember OTK Malagos Rogue?
Yeah.
Oh, what a game!
Malagos Miracle, baby!
Oh my God, it's like, all right, I have all the pieces. You're at 30 health, and you're dead.
You're
it's
done.
like,
yeah, you're done.
The best. Anyway, sorry, Adam. I'm getting horny thinking about Hearthstone in 2015.
I love this.
I miss classic Hearthstone. I reinstalled Hearthstone at some point and was very happy to see that I had not DE'd any of my classic stuff. So my Golden Leroy was still there, and I just played like Control Warrior for a week straight, and that's all I did. And it was a blast. I miss just throwing like the little money that I had back in 2015 on like packs and just trying to get what was it that I was missing? I was missing some stupid legendary, and for some reason I couldn't get it, and anyways, doesn't matter. It was a good time, and I'm sad to see the state of the game that it's in right now. I think that the game is not quite as good as it was. But anyways, we can talk about that stuff later in some other podcast that we can start about.
Yeah. Join us next week for our first foray into Hearthstone.
Into Hearthstone.
No.
Back to Outsiders.
Yeah, back to us. So I think like collapsing trap, like we can all agree, like there's definitely potential for it to be something really spicy. I'm gonna stand on the ground that it's on its own. We need just a little bit more. On its own, I'm not saying it's going to be bad, but it's like it's a powerful effect that needs to just be. We need a way to make it consistent. Like I said before, we have like there's a few spoilers you can check out now. I think the best place to we're not going to get into all of them. I'll link some stuff in the description. I've been getting them all on Discord. I don't know, like, is there a website? Oh, February has them all listed there.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys, by all means, if you have a specific one you want to get into quickly, let me know. I think we'll save the bonds and dishonor. We'll get to those at the end. One I do want to touch on, because I think there's been some interesting conversation on this one, is the quiver. Sean, why do you sigh? Why do you sigh?
Does that say it all?
Why do I think
look,
that's the incorrect read right away? But I want to hear what you have to say.
I think the quiver's. I think the addition of a quiver is cool. Is this the right quiver for the class? It's okay. I think quivers are cool. I think it's cool that they're going in that direction.
Yep, cool.
I mean, it doesn't hurt. It's free, right? Like
exactly,
it's free.
It's free.
It's free.
You have nothing to lose by equipping it.
If someone brings you a coffee at work and it's free, you drink it.
Even if it's Tim Hortons, like even if it's that bad.
Yeah.
Even if it's Tim Hortons. I mean, I'd rather it be like some kind of frappa lapa chapa latte, but I'll still drink it. So that's kind of how I feel about the quiver. I think it's a step in the right direction. It's still coffee, but there could be something more interesting there. I think it'll all depend on what the other like value cards are in the set. Matt, do you know more than you're letting on, or are you? Is there anything you're really excited about that you can't really talk to us about?
No. What do I know that I can share with you all?
Okay. It's okay. I don't want to put you too on the spot there.
About Outsiders specifically. I mean, not to toot my own horn, but I have the receipts. I guessed that there were going to be dual classes. I think in November. There's a conversation with Brian. Well, no, I was a legitimate guest. I promise you. Based on some of the, I don't want to say cryptic information given to me by Brian Gottlieb, but like we used to pester Brian all the time. It's a miracle that he still answers to my messages now and then. We would ask him, and like he would always talk about how great the drafting experience and how this set was going to be a drafter's dream and all this other stuff. And I would ask him why, and he said, "Well, you'll see. It's based on how the set is built." And then I said, "Well, okay. I said, judging by what Uprising was, I said, usually you don't have any you don't have any leeway or pivot space after like your fifth pick, because you have to pick a class and there's very few good generics in there. I'm like, is this a generic heavy set? And he's like, well, you'll see. I said, okay, well, that's whatever. And then I asked a few questions, and eventually I private messaged him. I'm like, dude, dual class cards. I said, you could, like, I'm not going to share this. I'm not out there to make a video or whatnot. I don't care about internet points. He's like,
Yeah.
he said, yes, but yeah, exactly. Without you did this thing or whatever.
Yeah.
I didn't tell the world. He didn't tell the world. I guessed it. He confirmed it. And then the world found out.
Side note, the fact that he gave you that and you didn't tell anyone, like, trust level between you two.
Oh, we're
buddies.
Well, the trust level between him and I was developed off of us casting together, where
absolutely,
somebody's a dude when you kind of, again, my casting style. I like to sort of grab the wheel and say, let's go here for a bit. And he's always the one, all right, well, if we're going here, you're buying the ice cream. So like, he always sort of allows me to go on those paths, and some of the silly things I'm like, hey, well, it'd be funny if we did this, and he's like, hey, if, and he would always play off my jokes. He's just I can't sort of hammer this home enough. Brian Gottlieb is one of the best people in the TCG space, and the fact that Flesh and Blood has him is like, yeah, like, way to go. Yeah, like, you guys, like, hammer that down. And not just based off of the fact that he designs cards and he's part of that process, but he's just a good person who is very receptive to the constructive criticism that he gets, as well as the plight and the struggles of the community. He is in a very interesting spot because he's friends with a lot of us who are, very good friends with us who are in this space, but he also has the conflict of being an LSS employee, obviously.
Yeah.
But he is still a champion for what's right. And I think that that's the most important aspect. He's not there to defend LSS blindly. He's there to defend what's right, no matter what it is. And he has admitted that, hey, this was a bad idea. And he said, well, no, you're wrong. This is the right thing to do in various different accounts. So, yeah, the trust level between us, I think, has kind of, over
You've
time,
proven yourself. Yeah.
I think so. I didn't say anything. I even said, I'm like, hey, just for the record, I guessed this. You didn't tell me, so we're all on that. I'm like,
yeah, we're in the clear, right?
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
We're good.
So, yeah, him and I have had some fairly, I would say intimate conversations, but like, we've had some very deep conversations regarding career, regarding life and stuff like that. We've had some very candid back and forth about stuff, and I don't want to say it got heated at times, but like, if we have conflicting viewpoints, we're very passionate about our positions. But at the end of the day, literally all of our conversations that get to that level always end with, hey, I love you, brother, and I respect you. And then it's like, so do I. And then that's how we end it. We never go to bed mad, is what we.
That's really cool, dude. And I think one thing is funny because I met the first time I met you in person, it was you and Tannen and a few other guys, was at Pro Tour New Jersey, and Tannen said something. He goes, "Yeah, man." I said, "You guys really got it. You guys are tight. You guys are good." And he goes, "Yeah, man, we gelling." And that
Tannen said that.
Said, "Yeah, man, we gelling." And I was like, that is a really interesting thing for you to say, Tannen. And then I said, I kind of got it. I'm like, you guys kind of have this groove, and there's a professional respect there, and there's kind of also like that space of being able to do your own thing within that, because that's often hard in broadcasting, specifically, like, trying to have your own voice but being respectful of what you're doing, and trying not to bleed too much of your own style and what you like. Like, I remember the first time you were casting Orlando, dude, the amount of WWE references that you dropped in to your casting, I was counting them. was counting them, and at some point there was like a thing about like Bravo being a luchador or something, and I couldn't stop laughing, and that's when I was like, I like this, but
dude, don't print a card called Chokeslam and then not let me make a Undertaker
like a
reference.
Kane or Undertaker reference. There you go. They were brothers. Anyways, so back to the whole Outsiders and you know, Brian Gottlieb obviously being part of the design team and being a hush hush. I think that like everybody who's watching the game, who's watching you, who's watching, you know, what's going to be happening within the next month, because by a month from now, almost to the day, we're going to have Outsiders in our hands, right?
Mm-hmm.
I know what I want. Is there anything that Flake wants from Outsiders?
I think what I want from Outsiders specifically is for what I think they've been heralding since its announcement, which is of a limited, just darling. I want limited to matter. And not to say that, like, Uprising was a very important set. You got Fi, you got Icelander, and constructed
some other character,
and Dromai. I mean, these are 3 relevant heroes that were printed in one set. How many other sets can really say that? And, you know, I mean, Bravo, sure. Katsu, not important right now. Rhinar, maybe, sure. Maybe Dorinthia, you know, but you go down the line and no set had a just unanimous roster of playable, relevant heroes. Now,
not on launch.
I guess not. I mean, Dromai on launch was not necessarily the greatest thing either.
To go against your point, you know, like Tails, we had Briar who warped the meta, Oldhim who later became a powerhouse, and Lexi who was playable off the bat, right? That's actually the only way to beat Briar for a while.
Yes.
So, and that was a scary set because the power level for that set was
still my favorite set. And a lot of people shit on Everfest. You go back to Everfest, people are like, oh, Everfest was garbage.
Everfest is when Viz got good.
Dude, go look at Everfest. People are like, oh, Everfest, you can get Everfest for like $50 a box if you look hard enough. You go look in what's in there. It is just jam-packed with great, great stuff. So all the people who think Everfest is a bad set, give your head a shake because Dynasty exists. And Dynasty was not a great set. No offense. I didn't like it. There's still some pieces there, but I'm also of the type of mindset where, much like people would, the way that I evaluate Dynasty is the same way I evaluate The Force Awakens, where it's like, okay, you might not like it now, but more stuff's coming out that might make you appreciate this more later, right? So ultimately, like, you know,
that's a hot take, man.
That said, so what I want from Dynasty is, from Outsiders, is I want to play in a limited situation, be it sealed or draft, and feel like every time I show up, I don't know what the hell I'm gonna do. Because when I went to go play Uprising draft, I played dozens and dozens of Uprising drafts. I went in there saying, all right, if I see this, I'm just locking this in. If I see this, I'm locking this in, and that's it. And like, I'm not a competitor, but like, you know, I'm not like Matt Rogers, who's like, well, I baited this person by passing him this, and I did. I'm like, no, man. If I see a red Rake the Embers or a red Ember Moss Senpai, like, I'm taking that. If I see a Blaze Headlong, like, I'm taking that. Like, you know, or if I see
the pack.
Precisely, you're playing the pack. And what I want to do is I want to go in and say, I want to make decisions through till pack 2. You know, like, I want to be able to say, you know what, like, I just drafted 9 cards. I don't know where the hell I'm going. And I don't want to say that because I don't want that to be completed with, I don't know where I'm going and I'm screwed. I want it to be, I don't know where I'm going, but I'm optimistic that I can still bust ass and, like, do some crazy stuff. And I'm confident. I'm very confident that that's what we're going to get, honestly. From what I've seen and from what I've heard, I think it's going to be awesome. And I think that the first thing I'm going to do is I've signed up for my pre-release at Harry Tarantula today. I'm going to be there, and I'm going to draft the living shit out of this game.
Very nice.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, that's to your point. Like, I think the big hope, like, even for myself, is that this just this game, this set lives up to just like good, especially good limited play, but just good play in general. Like, yeah, I had a few places I wanted to go still, but I think that's a really good place to cap it off at the end here. There's still, like I said, if you want to see the spoilers and get a better idea of what we know so far for Outsiders, February is probably the best place to see them all listed out. I know they've got a pretty good guide there, but I think we're gonna leave it at that for today. Flake, thank you so much for joining us. If you have any plugs, anything you want to, I'm sure you have plugs. Let us hear it. Where can we find you?
On Twitter personally at WatchFlake, WATCHFLAKE. You can catch the Instant Speed podcast on 983 Media. That's at youtube.com/983 Media. It's also on Twitter at Instant Speed Pod. And I stream basically every day. I'm on Talishar playing the game and sort of practicing and sort of getting my competitive itch satisfied. That's at twitch.tv/WatchFlake. But I want to give you guys some dap, because it's really important for you to do what you do, and I need to make sure that you guys realize how important your show is and what you guys do for the community. And I know sometimes it's difficult, and this is not an easy thing to do, and you guys need to understand that what you do is not easy. It's not always the most satisfying at times. Sometimes it feels difficult, but there are so many people who appreciate you, and I think you guys damn well better know that is the truth. So that's my last plug, is you guys.
Damn it, man! You gonna touch my heartstrings like that, man?
Well, you said you're gonna buy me a beer, so I got to make sure that I lock that in.
Right a minute. After this, I'll buy you a beer and dinner. God damn.
Woo! I love it.
Beautiful. That's beautiful.
La Casual Small, let's go.
La Casually boys away, more zilly chicken wings.
Je veux mes ailes, tabarnak.
Thank you so much. I mean, those words do mean the world, and coming out of Pat stepping away, even like there was that moment where I was asking myself, before Sean and I figured out we were gonna team up to keep this thing going. There was those moments where I was like, what do I want to do with this? How do I want to keep this going? And at the end of the day, it was just that thought that I know there's people out there who really enjoy, like we do have a little loyal listener base, and it means the world to me. That just investing the time into this is so cool and so much fun. So thank you. On that note, we are, get our plugs out there quickly. We are The Combat Chain. I'm Adam Filipchuk. He's Sean Hill. You can find us on YouTube at The Combat Chain. I hate that YouTube switched to the @ thing. It's so awkward now. It's like @ was Twitter's thing. Anyway, at The Combat Chain. You can find us on Twitter also at The Combat Chain. I'm at FomToolery TCG. He's at Sean Hill CG. Keep your eyes peeled. Like I said, Sean and I are working on getting some the wheels are starting to spin. We're the snowball's getting bigger. We've got Easton Douglas lined up next week. Give that guy some credit. Easton Douglas for everything he's done, like his monster run day one of France, top 8ing. It was US Nats he top 8'd, right, this year?
Oh, yeah. Lord.
I believe so, yeah.
Yes, I'll say yes confidently.
I'm pretty sure it was on
you.
I'm pretty sure it was on Oldhim. He top 8'd US Nats this year. A guy who's underrated with Team Ascent Gaming, who's on the up and up, and we're eager to get him on here next week and talk about all the things he's been doing. And we've got some other stuff lined up down the road as well. We're excited to bring content to you guys, and the future is bright. But I'll leave it at that for this week. Now, before we wrap up, we have one last piece of business. Flake, do you remember from last time the outro?
It has to do with breaking the chain or closing the combat chain.
That's right. So Pat had the duty for a while. It has fallen back on me. We end every episode in the same way. I will say until next week, and then in unison, we will all say we're closing the combat chain. It's super campy. It's super cheesy.
Fuck it, let's go, baby. Lean into it.
It's with the video now, it's even better. There's reactions, everything. Like we love it. So, will you join us?
Of
Flake?
Course I will.
Cool.
Yeah,
Cool. That's it for this week, episode 45. Thank you so much, everybody, for listening. Thank you to Flake for joining us. And that's going to do it. So until next week, we're closing the combat chain. Oh. That was great.
That one was wonky but good. It's got legs.